all the students who are up to, I would argue, up to 12th standard, they are really not thinking about their career. ये certificate मेरे पास होगा तो अच्छा होगा. That is only patchwork. If you put everything in a box, you are inadvertently conveying to me that you don't think out of the box. Mentoring the students may not be the practical step. Mentoring the parents will be. The finding of the World Economic Forum is that there are surely 8.7 million jobs which will vanish. This resume gets filtered through something called ATS. You can't say मैं ऐसा हूँ, अब बाकी आप देख लो. How is it that people who have lower CGPA than mine are getting interview calls and I am not getting even a single call? More preference is given for skills rather than academic performance.
So welcome to episode 12 of Dr. AB's Podium, Learnings and Insights to Podcasts. This is a special initiative which I have started long back, about in August 2024. The major reason why I started this was, to bring educational content, to bring informative content on topics which are of relevance to students. One of the most important topic I think that will always remain contemporary and very, very relevant to everybody in their student phase is how to develop their careers. And a lot of times, we have seen that students, they come to us, they meet us. In the journey that they spend with us in the next 2 years, they generally have ideas, lot of ideas in their mind, but a lot of ideas or too many ideas, too much of information basically creates a lot of confusion in their mind with regards to what kind of a career they should choose, what kind of opportunities they should choose. To discuss on this, today my topic is the career compass. Career compass basically is to navigate the right career options. I have Dr. Bhooshan Kelkar sir with me. Dr. Bhooshan Kelkar sir is the director of Newflex Talent Solutions. He's MS PhD from UK. He's a BTech and IIT from IIT Mumbai, and he's a master innovator. He's a mentor. He's a trainer to a lot of students. He has spent a lot of years, a lot of experience he has in training his students in this domain. So I thought he would be the right person today to discuss all this on this topic. Special section of this discussion would be on building the CVs. I think because that's the ticket, the entry for you people to enter the corporates. That's the first document that anybody sees. So that section we will cover in this later. Okay. So thank you so much for joining us. And my first question today, why I thought of discussing this with you. Couple of days ago, I saw one news article in Pune. In I think it was in Kharadi or one of the IT parks. I saw a huge line, 2.5-3 kilometers of a line. With youngsters carrying their files in their hands, documents in their hands, and they are standing in the hot sun, waiting for recruiters to call them inside and call them for jobs. Right. It's a serious condition. There are a lot of we have a lot of talent. We are a young country. Yeah. And youngsters are there, energy is there, but how do we really channelize this? And how do youngsters now? The first question is how do they start? Because when we talk of navigating, it is first important where to start. So how do these youngsters decide, or how should they decide where to start their careers?
So the careers, the development of career naturally would start with the selection. And if you have decided that you are going to be a manager or you are going to enter in management field or technology field, then you must really like the field. If you think about just the payment, and think about just the compensation, then everybody knows that a surgeon would make a lot of money. But are you really cut out to be a surgeon? And I'm not only talking about how many marks you get in biology. That's only a very insignificant part of the equation. Do you really have the constitution to become a surgeon? And if the answer is emphatic no, then there is no point in taking that path. The same thing applies to management, engineering, technology, any field, any walk of life. And so the identification of what you really want and want to be is a very key factor. So I would say there are two steps. One is the selection of the career and then the development. The development will keep on happening regardless of what your CGPA is, etc., etc. And it is a matter of fact that there is definitely certain areas of work which are changing. They are changing in their demand. The World Economic Forum very recently published report that creativity, and innovation and continuous learning are three absolutely critical attributes that companies, governments, institutions are going to look for. This is again regardless of the domain. So when for the situation that you described, what the students should be asking themselves is, are they doing anything in that direction? That would be a sustainable solution. Rather than saying I'll do this course, ये मैं और एक कोर्स कर लूँगा, ये सर्टिफिकेट मेरे पास होगा तो अच्छा होगा. That is only patchwork.
Right.
This doesn't solve the problem. Let's go to the root of it, and the root is that you must have continuous improvement in your career path. So that is what I would suggest is a sustainable solution for this long line under hot sun.
I think normally what happens is, typically students, probably when they reach 8th standard or 9th standard, there are 3 streams that are given to them, even today.
Yeah.
This happened in my time also. This is happening even
And
today
certainly
also.
my time too.
So there are only 3 streams that are shown to them.
Correct.
It is either they go for science.
Yeah.
The obvious route is to go for either engineering or a medical
Correct.
degree. The second line, obviously, if not science, then the next one is to go for commerce, because that will still help you earn better salary.
Correct.
Arts probably still is a domain which is not really looked upon.
Yes.
That way. But even today the same thing is happening. I think since we also have a school, probably I think could there be something that can be done even at that level, to where we can start mentoring students right from that stage, or is it too early to mentor from that stage?
No, I think mentoring the students may not be the practical step. Mentoring the parents will be. One, they are the decision makers.
Correct.
And realistically speaking, all the students who are up to, I would argue, up to 12th standard, they are really not thinking about their career. They are not mature, and all they are thinking about is, मेरे geography में कल के एग्जाम में कितने मार्क्स आएंगे. It's very episodic. They are not thinking about a bigger picture, and it is not even expected of them to think about a bigger picture. They are too young. So the mentoring should be done for the parents. That is part number 1. But the foundations of it should be worked upon while they are in school, because it is a well-known fact, which is also harped upon by NEP 2020, that 85% of human brain development happens below age of 8. And in fact, the teachers which are assigned to the schools, which is age 8 and below, they are the least and the most they are least cared about and most neglected in terms of their academic content, their academic prowess, and their teaching prowess. So it's a very ironical fact. After 10th standard, the utmost development that you can hope for is 15%, and that is where we are putting a lot of resources. So your point is well taken, and that is the foundations of the development of career would actually develop in school, but it should be done without directed focus. It should be an indirect one.
Right.
And so that is how it should be done, and that will happen through the participation of parents.
Correct. So generally, when we talk of my obvious question, in the next section would have been, how do students set right expectations? But let's start from this first.
Yeah.
How do we help parents set up right expectations for the students?
So
For their kids.
yeah. So again, going back to your very valid point, which is the art, science, commerce trifecta. Beyond that, there are a lot of things which are happening. In fact, I divide the time that we live in 2 parts. One I'm calling BC and the other I'm calling AD.
Okay.
BC is before ChatGPT and AD is after DeepSeek. So most of the students, even currently studying, whether they are in 8th standard or even management students, they are going to complete their education right around BC, and their entire career is going to develop in AD. So the education part will have to be continuous even in schools. For parents, what we will need to do is make the parents aware of this AD and BC era. And they will pick on this very, very fast. In fact, that is my experience when I have conducted several public talks about how the scenario in terms of jobs and education is changing, especially in light of and with the advent of AI. There is always a great demand from the parents to know about this, because they are definitely concerned about their students, their ward's welfare. and they are investing money, time, resources, and of course there is affection. So if we do that and we tell them that the times have shifted very rapidly from just the art, science, commerce, and there are in fact many different types of streams, jobs which are opening up for which there is no curriculum that is stipulated by any university in the entire world. I'm not talking only about India. The finding of the World Economic Forum is that there are surely 8.7 million jobs which will vanish this year, 25.
Correct.
But then there are 9.7 million jobs which are opening up for which there is no formal training. This needs to be known to the parents.
Right.
Then it will percolate down to the students.
Right.
Otherwise, the students will have only the goal of scoring 20 on 20 in unit test 1 for geography. This is a very myopic view. This has nothing to do with career. This is only one milestone. Ek padav hai.
Right.
But you need to go well beyond that. And so this will come from the parents. Realistically, parents spend a lot more time and they are much more impressionable with parents. The students are.
Right.
So I think this needs to
I
be
had a
recognized.
discussion, in one of my earlier episodes with reference to the same topic as to how AI will have an impact on jobs.
Yeah.
And the entire conclusion or the takeaway from the discussion was the same thing, that AI will not take away jobs, it will replace a few jobs, but there will be certain other skills that will need to be learned.
Yes.
So when I say this, there's obviously the fact that whether you are a graduate in science or a commerce graduate or anything else, the basic fact is that you need to implement yourself or you need to update yourself when it comes to AI skills.
Correct. Absolutely.
Correct. So your view on this, how does somebody really stay at pace with this?
So you're right. In the sense, we are not going to be competing with AI. We are going to be competing with people who use AI. So I would say be one.
Correct.
Not only your domain, but AI tools in that domain is a must. It is not a luxury. So if you did that and you continuously evolve yourself, in fact, my suggestion has always been, even before NEP 2020, that you must have 2 tracks at any given point in time for a student who is past 10th and about to retire. There should be one domain where you are absolutely good, and there should be another domain where you are maybe 70 to 80% there. Just in case you need to switch, you should be ready. You can't start from scratch. And so if this continuous learning in the era of AI happens, then you will never be outdated one, and you will always be a hot commodity, in fact. To ride the wave or tsunami of AI, my suggestion always has been to have continuous learning. And that should involve a part of AI. Now, there are certain other media interviews that I have given. One person who used to interview me for 10 to 12 years, one day he said that I'm going to be fired. And I wondered why. He was a veteran of that industry. And he said, it's because I don't know how to use Google Analytics. He's a journalism person.
Okay.
And he was afraid that he was not good at mathematics when he was in school. So he had that reminiscent knowledge. And he said, I don't want to deal with Google Analytics. Not knowing that Google Analytics does not mean mathematics. So it's the mindset.
Correct.
The mindset that AI tools really is not mathematics. If you know mathematics, it's even better.
Yeah.
But this continuous learning will have to be done by all people. In fact, even the parents. If the parents want to be relevant 5 years from today, they need to continuously improvise on their skills anyway. Right. And that's much more so for the generation that is below. Right. And especially 2025, we have Gen Beta starting.
Right.
By the time they hit the road, it's going to be even more important.
Another probably about 10-15 years from today.
Yeah.
2040.
Correct.
Coming, one level above. मैंने देखा है कि generally I spoke about the school students that they have 3 lines in front of them.
Yeah.
I deal with students in the management stream.
Right.
I have seen that a lot of students, they select domains which are which will help them to get into a back end kind of a job. Probably finance or HR.
Right.
The first point which you mentioned, that how they should first be convinced that they are cut out for their job or not. But होता क्या है, बहुत से students जो है select करता है finance because they don't want to get into sales.
Right.
Or they don't want to be into customer facing roles.
Right.
So how do they actually avoid this mistake because this is a very important part, when they come into this domain, later on when it comes to selecting the right kind of jobs, they find a lot of hurdles in that.
Yeah. So this is again nothing new. This happens with engineering. This happens with all kinds of branches. But if we focus only on management, I would say that there should be a personality related test done by the students. And we have our own through my company.
Yeah.
But really, I'm not talking about that particular test. I would say the students should take up even lots of free tools which are available on the web. And if they analyze themselves, and it's not the classic SWOT analysis, I'm talking about very scientifically developed psychometry or personality related tests. If they do that, they will have a fair idea whether under management they are good for strategy, HR, CSR, or finance, or many other horizontal slices of management, or verticals like agri, which MIMA has, or pharma, or finance, or IT. So this is a matrix, and you must find that cell in that matrix where you are best suited. If you work there, then it is path of least resistance. You're not doing something that is orthogonal to your basic constitution, and then it becomes one, successful, and second, much more important to me, enjoyable. If you are working in a field simply because it is in vogue, or you perceive that to be the one that will give you more money, but it is exactly orthogonal to how you are, you have to do it for 40 years.
Correct.
You can't be unhappy and successful.
Correct.
I would rather you be both successful and happy. And that can be done with very minimal intervention of just assessing yourself only once.
Correct.
So this is very easy.
This is a very important point. See, previous generations probably used to have the parameter of success.
Yeah.
Happiness would have been very, very,
Optional.
But today's generation, when they are aware about mental health and work-life balance and all these things,
Correct.
I think it's a very important point that
Absolutely.
they need to select something which is going to balance both of these things.
Yes.
You mentioned about tests.
Yeah.
Can you give us examples, maybe 2 or 3 of 4 different examples of what kind of parameters are there when they focus on these kind of tests?
Right. So there are many tests, and so 16 personality factor test is one. There is another one which is very popular in the corporates, and it's called MBTI, Myers-Briggs Typology Indicator Test. But the reason why we have created another test is because these are slices of personality in our view. So I give this example many times that if you go to a doctor and show a very top quality MRI to the doctor and say, this is the MRI of my stomach, tell me what my ailment is. The doctor is bound to say that you should give me at least a rudimentary blood report, your family history, your own medical history, etc. That part is not unfortunately being done today. That is what we have tried to bridge, and we have a Gestalt test that we have created. So there are many tests which are available. I would argue that even if it is not the best test, it is something that you should do for your own sake than not taking any test at all. Even if the test is substandard or it is not giving you full picture of your personality, it is better than not doing any test at all. So what are the factors? They are like what is your agreeableness, whether you are extrovert or introvert. So think about this. If somebody is scoring 100 on 100 in marketing, but is a very high introvert person, it will be very difficult for him because the overall functionality involves a lot of talking.
Yeah.
And if you don't enjoy that, think about medical doctor, not from management, but somebody is a super introvert and very logical and not emotional at all. And this person becomes a psychiatrist or pediatrician. What will happen?
Difficult.
God forbid, but such a thing, all the patients would go mad.
Yeah.
So these things need to be taken into account. This is not only your marks in finance or marks in biology. And so personality factors, and we measure 21 of them, but at least a subset should be measured. The critical ones should be measured. And based on that, if they select, then there is a very high chance that they will be successful and happy, not one over the other.
I was going through your your website, and I saw this very interesting thing called career clock.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about 12 key aspects of building careers. Could you just throw a little bit of light on that?
So we built this career clock after explaining how to write resumes, how to prepare for a better career for 7, 8, 9 years. And even after that, the students were not able to grasp it fully, or to the extent that we had hoped they would. So what we did was we created an app, and it's a free app. And currently it is available on our website, and it's a freely downloadable APK. So we looked at 12 building blocks of career, and hence career clock. And we are also calling it career GPS.
Okay.
You know, when you're driving and you feel lost, and you want to know where you are vis-a-vis your final destination or where you started your journey from. This is a continuous GPS that we have built, and we are calling it career clock because there are 12 arms. Each arm or each hour is equivalent of a building block we think is critical for good career. So, for example, one would be obviously academic prowess. Second would be if you know any foreign language. And when I say foreign language, it doesn't have to be out of India. Even if you know Telugu, when your mother tongue is Marathi, it is a very good thing that you have done to yourself, because then you are going to be benefited in marketing, sales, communication in general.
Correct.
So, non-mother tongue language efficiency and prowess is the second part. Third part, and there are 12 of them. Third may be whether you have done any co-curricular activities, if you have done any extracurricular activities, if you have done any projects, if you have shown any leadership quality, if you have done any practical experience. That might be, if you have any practical experience, that might be formal, informal, or just through connections. Even if you have taken practical experience in your uncle's firm, that still counts, because the company is not going to be bothered whether you went through the regular process. What they will say is what you can do for me tomorrow or today. And if that comes through your experience working in your uncle's firm, so be it. So the practical experience that you have garnered, if you have any publications, patents, or any thought leadership that you have proven, many of these aspects are measured, quantified, and we have built an engine using AI and a lot of data, more than 8,000, 9,000 students across 29 different countries. And this tool is now available for you to be downloaded. There are questionnaires corresponding to each of these 12. And based on your answers, and it is self-assessment, we are not going to be asking for your certificates or anything like that. Based on that, you will get two things. One, where you stand in that spider web vis-a-vis competition. All 8,000 students as a background, where you are ahead and where you are below. So if you are ahead, those are the things that you should lead your answers with in interviews, because this is where you are sure that you are ahead of the curve and better than the peers. And if you look at areas which are below the average, then those are your plans for the next semester. So for example, if I am lower in co-curricular compared to my peers, then I know that I need to buttress my resume with at least taking 1 or 2 courses. And if I am ahead in extracurricular, then the very unromantic question that gets asked in the interview, describe yourself. There I should be able to say with confidence that I have done more extracurricular things than many other people, and that is not just figment of my imagination, it is substantiated by data. So this tool, being free, is a good go-to document or go-to resource for writing your resume as well as preparing for the interview. And it's free. So I would invite all our viewers to actually take a look.
Correct.
And these 12 building blocks, you will continuously evolve. After a semester or so, you will be having an opportunity to go back, and you will update what you have done in that time frame, knowing fully well that even other students have done so. So it's a moving horizon.
Correct.
And so you'll have to keep up with that.
Correct.
But if you don't have this tool, then you have no idea. You're just shooting in the dark. That's why we built the tool.
Two interesting things I'll tell you. You mentioned that the career clock is more about navigating.
Yeah.
Somehow my topic for today and your idea of the career clock, my topic for today is career compass.
Yeah.
It has actually come together, and
Right.
it's a good sign.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that when it comes to assessment, एक चीज हमने हमेशा देखी है, when it comes to getting yourself checked, whether it is a medical test or assessing yourself, एक डर होता है दिमाग में. So have you noticed this kind of a fear in minds of students because you train a lot of students regularly?
So yes, the fear is because you think that you will fall short on something. So this fear stems from the fact if the test is addressing something that is right and wrong. Our tests are right and left.
Okay.
You're a left-handed person, it doesn't make you good or bad. So our tests are directed towards that. And then there is no fear. There is no need for manipulation.
Right.
You can just declare I am a left-handed person or right-handed person. You are not good or bad. If I assign or attribute certain standard that you are a high category student, you are a medium and low, then there is a fear, and then there is a temptation to modify your answers to suit the need of a particular job, etc., etc. Here we are just asking you, are you right-handed or left-handed? Do you like sweet or you like sour? That's it. That doesn't make you good or bad. And that's why these questions that we ask are so innocuous. You don't even know what you're answering. There's no question of fudging. And this we say with confidence because we have done this with corporates too. And this is a very standard question that gets asked by the HR, that if we are trying to promote somebody and we are giving your test, what happens? Will they be able to fudge? And a definite answer is they won't, because they don't know what they are answering. And so when the questions are innocuous, there is a chance that we'll get a true picture of the personality, and then we'll be able to comment better. If the input is wrong, then output is questionable. And so we are sure about what we say in terms of the counseling. And thankfully, 27,000 students from 29 different countries have taken this test. And overwhelming majority have said that this is a true picture of my son or daughter.
Correct.
And if the input is correct, then what we build over that is also going to be very likely correct.
Correct.
The control will work only if you are able to model a system correctly. And what you don't measure, you can't control. And that's why we have built this test.
This is very important, no? Because when you say that there is no right or wrong, it's either going to be right or left.
Yeah.
That fear has somewhere come into our mind.
Correct.
What we spoke about school, no?
Correct.
तो वो तभी था ना कि comparison.
Correct.
इनका लड़का ये कर रहा है, उनका लड़का वो कर रहा है. So that kind of comparison always would have been there.
Absolutely.
Probably that is another reason why the fear would have been there in people's mind. What do you feel about that?
Yes. So, absolutely right. Many a times we have been told that only one answer is correct. And the fact that multiple answers, multiple directions could be correct, the innovative mindset, all of that is not part of Indian society for a very long time. Thankfully, it is changing now. And so and there are stigma associated with certain types of roles. The blue collar, white collar, etc., etc. There is so much ingrained in human mind, especially in India. So if somebody says I am a YouTuber, it used to be looked down upon. If you said that you are in agri management, if you are in pharma, and this is again still not new. When I work with many pharma companies, if there is a MR, medical representative, they tell me even today that thankfully the number has gone down, but if you are an MR, you are not getting married. Because if you are an MR, then the job is uncertain, the pay is low, not proportionate, and you would be out most of the time, and you are selling, and your fate and your family's fate is dependent on the thinking of the doctor at that point in time. So there is a lot of uncertainty, and so people were very reluctant to get into MR as a role, even though they were really suited for that, etc. So this stigma and the mindset needs to change. And
I think for sales, even today, the same mindset is there.
Yes.
We try to explain to students that if you're getting into something called B2B sales, business to business sales, you're not going to be selling toothbrush.
Correct.
Going door to door, or this is not door to door sales would not be like that.
Yeah.
It's a very difficult thing to remove this kind of a mindset even today from the minds of people. How do we really work on that?
So this is not a simple problem, but what is happening at a society level is that because so many options of career are opening up, you don't have to be only engineer or doctor or a lawyer or a CA to have upward mobility in life. You can do lots of things. In fact, I'll give you an example. When I used to work in Hinjawadi IBM for some time, 3 IBMers decided that this was it. They don't want to be in IT and the rat race. and they started a small tea shop, very specialty tea shop. Why? Because in the vicinity of that IT park, there was no sensible tea shop. You had to drive down, and that too only in lunchtime, etc., etc. And so they took permission, they started tea shop, and in 6 months' time, they have started making more money than their managers. And they are not being looked down upon. This is just one isolated but very representative case. This is something I have seen, witnessed. And this is 7 years pre-COVID. So if you have a tea shop, if you are doing something that makes you happy, and if this were to be the case 20 years prior, I think they would have been looked down upon, they would be ridiculed, and this has changed. So I think the shackles of this expectation that you need to be only in these 4 categories to be called successful, I think that is breaking down, thankfully.
Correct. So Pune is anyway a city for startups.
Yeah.
It has always been known for that. So I think it's a very apt example you give from Hinjewadi because it's from Pune itself.
Yeah.
And lot of entrepreneurs are being trained. They are developing this way.
Yes.
What is your comment on entrepreneurship as a different a different direction for career probably?
So I think that is definitely on the rise. And I say this with numbers. In one college where I am teaching for last 13 years, out of curiosity, we had done a survey. And these students, 6% of the students said that they are possibly thinking about entrepreneurship 13 years ago. And the last year's survey says something closer to 20%. 1 in 5 women in our class are saying that they want to at least consider being an entrepreneur. Whether they will be or is a different story. But the 6 to 20, nearly 20, in 13 years says something about how we are viewing entrepreneurship. Then of course at the government level there are a lot of drives like Startup India, Stand Up India, etc. We know that the unicorns are increasing in India, what they used to be 10 years ago and what they are now. So there are a lot of things which are happening around us. They are not only in the public sector but also private sector. The equity that you are able to raise, the crowdfunding, and also there are a lot of institutions where there is very conscious effort of entrepreneurial cell. And it is not thankfully limited only to technology. So that's definitely happening. And there is an aspiration in the minds of young Indians, the demographic dividend that we keep talking about, that they don't want to just look for jobs, they want to create jobs. And of course they will fail, many of them do, but they are still ready for it. And the statistic is definitely against them. They also know when they are venturing into entrepreneurship, they know that there are many, many more failures than successes. And still they are getting into it. This is a very welcome change. Look at the viewership of Shark Tank in India. It's on the rise.
Yeah.
So this is happening because at least you are opening your minds to the possibility that at some point in time you will try your hand at being an entrepreneur. And the earlier the better, because that time in stage of life you don't have much responsibility.
Correct.
So even if you fail, in fact I would say that there are many companies in the US that I have actually interacted with. They prefer people who have failed.
Okay.
If you have failed and then you have collected yourself and you have sprung back from failures, the resilience is a trait that is far, far more important than being brilliant. In Australian cricket team, they pick cricketers, bowlers or batsmen, who have had a bad spell consciously, because you need to be resilient to be staying relevant in the market. And so this feature will come only if you even try entrepreneurship. If you are going to have the mindset that I'm going to do my 9 to 5 and I'm going to retire in a company, then of course it's a different story. I wouldn't be supporting that kind of thing. And of course, not just the demographic dividend in terms of numbers, in terms of ideas, we are no less than the rest of the world. If you think just about the CEO list of successful US companies, I think the story is very evident.
Absolutely. Of course, a lot of people who have ideas in their mind, but obviously there's always that, probably the family which is not very supportive, or the lack of availability of the resources at that point of time, most of the people, they decide to go in for jobs. Now, what we spoke in the beginning, the ticket to getting into a job or the first document is a CV.
Yeah.
First, I would like to understand from you, for my viewers, who are students primarily, the difference between a CV, a biodata, and a resume.
I'm very glad you are even pointing out that there is a difference. Many a times this is used interchangeably. For our students, what they want is a resume, not a CV, not a biodata.
Okay.
Biodata is a one-pager and it is very definitively chronological from your birth to now in that sequence. Whereas if you look at a CV or a resume, it is almost always expected that it is reverse chronological. You should list what you did most recently first and subsequently. So this is one. The purpose itself of these three is different. CV, which stands for curriculum vitae, is a very long document and it is for seeking a job or an opportunity. So your CV can be 16 pages. If you are a professor, you will, and you are expected to list all your publications.
Publications, books and everything.
All of that.
Yeah.
You cannot write that in resume. And biodata has no semblance of publications. In biodata, typically one page, it is chronological and funny enough, but it can be used for matrimonial purposes. Whereas a resume is not. Resume is typically 1 to 2 pages, and for the audience that we are talking to today, it is only 1 page. 2 pages typically if you are in 30 years into industry. Even then, many people who are seasoned veterans of the industry, they have 1 page resume. Whereas biodata is 1 page but for a different purpose and chronologically arranged, and CV is typically 5, 6, 20 pages.
Okay. But then CV, like you said, even if a resume, typically internationally also, is 1 page or 2 pages.
Correct.
Why do we still use a CV then in the first place? Because CV, like you said, is a long document.
We shouldn't. The answer is we shouldn't use. So CV is a misnomer for resume and we keep using that interchangeably as a name. We should not say I'm submitting my CV. You should be submitting your resume. If you are applying for a professional job and for a professional role, then it should be, in fact, the summarization part is the trick of converting CV to resume. And that is where most of the people go wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go one by one.
Sure.
In case of a resume now, how do you actually start from it? From start to end, if you could explain to us.
Sure. So I will make two types or talk about 2 types of resumes. First one, that is printed resume, and the other one, that is spoken or visual resume. So in case of printed resume, I would say there are 4 or 5 major elements. The first one that I would say is your absolute basic information. That is your name and your maybe WhatsApp number and an email and possibly GitHub or website. And that's it. You should not give anything more than that as personal information in resume. People give lots of things, right from blood group to their family information, to their religion, their reservation category if applicable, lots of things. And no company, no organization is really interested in that at this point in time.
Okay.
So this is one. Second part, which is missing in Indian resumes, is objective. What will you do if given a job tomorrow? The answer to this question, given in 1 line and in reported speech, is objective. And the keywords in the job description, if they also appear in your objective, then there is a good match and your resume will be picked up more likely for subsequent hoops in the selection process. So objective will be something like seeking opportunity to use the knowledge of ABC in the field of PQR. That's it. This is objective. And the other part which is also missing is called summary or profile, basic profile. So summary means 3 to 4 lines substantiating why you think you are capable of delivering what you wrote in objective. The rationale is summary. So you could say postgraduate in such and such field, 5 years experience, fluent in some foreign language, participated in this, and co-curricular, completed 2 more courses. This is your ammunition. This is the reason why you think you are capable of delivering what you are saying in objective as your aspiration.
Okay. The question I'll ask you here is objectives. It could be objective or objectives. Could be
Single objective.
Single objective.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
And it is specific to the company.
So that means that
And for a role.
it is going to be dynamic.
It will have to be dynamic.
Yes.
It will have to be dynamic.
It will not be one size fitting all.
Correct. And this is again a misnomer that I have prepared my resume and I'm going to shoot it to 100 companies. Now think about this. You sending your same resume to a company that is multinational and you sending the same resume to a corner shop in Pune. The audience is different.
Absolutely.
Shouldn't you cater to your audience when you are trying to and hoping to do a good communication? You can't say, मैं ऐसा हूँ, अब बाकी आप देख लो.
Take it or leave it.
That is not the right approach. You will need to keep in mind who you are talking to. Example, if you have learned German up to, let's say, B1 level, and you are applying to a corner shop in Pune, and their farthest customer is in Mumbai. And let's take another situation where you are applying to Siemens company, and their closest customer is in Delhi, to where your location is. If you have learned German, isn't this important to be known to Siemens hiring manager as opposed to the company that is probably 10 people company in some corner in Pune? How can you afford to have the same resume being shot to 2 different companies of different sizes, of different number of people working, their span, everything is different, their genre is different. So you'll have to pay attention to, it's not only about you, it's also about the other side. As they say for teachers, if you want to teach physics to Ramu, you need to know physics, but you also need to know Ramu. So yes, your resume is absolutely speak and span, but the reader is not asking for certain information and reader wants to know something else you have not written. So this will be a mismatch.
Correct, correct. And when it comes to, the summary or, what you exactly have to offer, a lot of mistakes when, people make in terms of writing their skills over there.
Right.
Now skills,
Separate.
I have seen skills are supposed to be separate.
Yeah.
But one of the most common skill that people write is that they are hardworking and they're committed.
Correct.
It is a taken. It has to be there, no?
Right.
What do you feel on that?
Not only that, you need to showcase the differentiators. If you said you are hardworking, are you saying that others are not, and on what basis? So there is no value addition. Any word that you write on that page, it is occupying real estate and it is expensive. So you need to be sure about the value that you are, the incremental value that you are giving by writing any word, even I would argue any space that you have in that document.
I think adjectives, overall if you see adjectives, hardworking, honest, trustworthy, patient, I feel personally they should be avoided. What do you feel about this?
Yes. So unless you have done a course to that effect, or you have a concrete proof as to why you think you are better than others, you should not write those. Absolutely. So you can encapsulate that by saying exposure to soft skills. Just one thing will cover everything. That part is okay. But specifying 15 soft skills, which generally would be expected of you anyway, is a waste of space.
Absolutely. In my discussion about AI, we had mentioned that, probably 20 years ago, mentioning in the resume that, I know Excel was a novelty.
Yeah.
Today, if I mention that, it is taken that you need to know the basics of Excel.
Correct.
Or you need to know basics of Microsoft Office, for that matter. Yeah. Coming to the next part of the resume.
So then, depending on what stage you find yourself at in your career, either education will be at the top or experience. For the audience that we are talking to today, I think education will top. Because they are like 21, 22, 25. So education, they don't have much experience. Their strong point is education. So they should be writing about education and in the reverse chronological order. If you are doing MBA now, then you should write MBA and then your graduation and then possibly 12th.
In education also, sir, I have seen that people mention only their marks,
Yeah.
their CGPA or the last semester or whatever it is.
Right.
How do we elaborate on education? Because see, when it comes to students, when it comes to people who are experienced,
Yeah.
they have many more things to write on that.
Correct.
But like you rightly said, for students, it's only going to be about education. So how do they elaborate on this?
Yeah. So again, there are two parts. One is being able to select the ones which are from your, let's say, 10 achievements. Selecting 2 from 10 also requires some processing on your side. And which to eliminate is more difficult than which to select. Okay. But there is also one way of handling it. If you have, for example, given a LinkedIn page at the top, or your GitHub page, or your website, if you have created one, then you can use that as a placeholder. So, for example, just for argument's sake, I have taken 3 courses in my in soft skills, and I've completed those with flying colors, but I can't be listing those. I can write that I have done creativity course grade A, teamwork grade A plus, and something else, and further description, and I give LinkedIn page. Then you give the control to me, the reader. If I really want to go deeper into that, dive deeper into that, I can click on that link, it will take me to the page, but that control rests with me instead of you giving a 3-page resume. So this is one way of dealing with it. Second is isolating which are critical for the company and the job role that you're applying to. And others are good, but they are still fluff. And you can afford not to mention it. This will automatically come up in the interview stage.
Because I'll tell you, we have always had this in mind when we look at the format. That when it comes to education, there has to be a tabular format where we write, say, in the reverse order, MBA, then graduation, further whatever it is, then the year, then the school, then the university, board, whatever it is.
Correct.
The marks, and we end.
Right.
We don't write anything else apart from this.
Right.
How important do you feel it is for the students to write something more than this?
First of all, I have found that putting your grades or your academic credentials or journey in a box, in a table, is not done.
Okay.
If you put everything in a box, you are inadvertently conveying to me that you don't think out of the box. This should be bullet points.
Interesting.
You want to say in the interview that I am a creative thinker, I am a divergent thinker, and I think out of the box, and etc., etc. Except that my entire representation of my journey so far is in a box. Don't you think it's ironical?
True.
And so my appeal to students has always, in fact, I wrote a book about how to write a resume, and that went into 5th edition, and I have stopped printing it simply because I think that the second part of the resume, which is more on the visual side, virtual side, is coming up more and more. In fact, many companies are recruiting not based on the printed resume, but they are recruiting from LinkedIn and so on. But again, closing this part, you should write bullet points, no tables. And if you think you are giving an impression that by putting it in a table, you are showing that you are a very structured person, it's exactly opposite of what the companies are hoping to see. So let your rigor and structure come through your achievements than just the format of the table. Okay. And so education should be about what are the highlights that you learned in that could be given as 2 bullet points. Instead of just giving the marks and the address of the university, etc. That is not really necessary.
A board or all these
Correct.
things.
So if you have done MBA or you are doing MBA, then 10th standard really has no value unless you are first in Maharashtra. Think about this. Have you met any person, or do you think you will meet any person who is doing MBA but has not passed 10th? What is the point?
It is taken, yeah.
So think about the simplest thing I will appeal to our students, the viewers, is look at this document from the other side of the table. Automatically you will do all right things. When you become managers, and I hope you do quicker than not, you wouldn't want to go through all the details of 9th standard, unka Hindi or Sanskrit 50-50 tha ya nahi tha. What is the value of that now when you are doing MBA in Agri-Tech?
Correct.
So think about it from that perspective, and any achievement that you have, anything where you're different from the rest of the crowd, anything that you have done extra in, say, practical experience, that needs to be there in the resume. One more thing that you should put down is hobbies, the skills and references. So you need not write the names of the people. You don't have to divulge that information, but you should say references available upon request.
Now, when थोड़ा सा interesting सवाल यहाँ पे आता है कि hobbies when people mention.
Yeah.
Is it really compulsory that people should mention? Because why I'm asking this is, people mention, if you probably look at 10 resumes in a line, the hobbies would be common.
Yeah.
So, is it really required that they should mention this?
So it is not compulsory that you have to have a hobby, but then be prepared for answering the question which would be very obvious, that why don't you have a hobby? If you have a very convincing answer, then so be it. But if you write a hobby, you better know a few things about what you write.
Right.
Yeah. So for example, we are talking today very close to Marathi Rajbhasha Din. Many people write reading books. When asked, they say Marathi, but they have no knowledge about Kusumagraj.
Correct.
If that happens, then that is not only about your hobby. What this really does in the resume and subsequently in the interview is questions your integrity. If you said reading is your hobby, and if you are not able to answer very basic things about what you chose as hobby, then when you are saying I am interested in C++ programming, databases, management, how would I trust you? So this is a question mark on your personality. This is a question mark on your integrity, rather than that specific knowledge about a hobby that you have written. So be very careful about what you write in hobby, is my suggestion to the students. And if you have a hobby, just limit it to 2 or 3.
Correct.
You don't have to make a list of things that you have done since you were born. So just pick 2 or 3 that you really, really enjoy. And how do you define a hobby? If I spent 3 hours doing something, and if I felt like I spent only half an hour, that is a hobby. I'm listening to Marathi Natya Sangeet, which I like. 2 hours have gone by, but I feel like I just started half an hour ago. This is definitely my hobby. Not the other way around.
Right. You mentioned about students writing or anybody writing something on the resume and not exaggerating. People do this.
Yeah.
When it comes to getting selected for a job, they really want to get selected.
Yeah.
And they end up writing things which they are not able to justify.
Right.
How should they avoid this?
Oh, they should avoid it.
Or rather, I would probably reframe the question. What kind of repercussions are there when somebody finds out that you have written something which is over exaggerated or over inflated in this case?
In fact, let me take this question in 2 parts. One, how you should write it, and then what to do with exaggeration. Let's say in foreign language expertise, if I write Marathi, which is my mother tongue, English, Hindi, German, which I have learnt, and maybe for argument's sake I have learnt Japanese. If I wrote all 5, I say nothing about my actual expertise in each. What I should do, because otherwise if I submit this resume to Siemens, they are going to say, "Arey yaar, isko German aata hai." My entire interview can be started in German.
Could be, yeah.
And then I don't understand anything. And then they would say, "You have written German." Then I have to say that, "Oh, sorry sir, German is only introductory. I did that in 8th, 9th and 10th in school. So I don't remember now." So why did you write it? In the same tone as Marathi, English and Hindi, which you can answer questions in very easily. Okay. So I would say make it clear as possible, as clear as possible. You should say Marathi, English, Hindi, proficient, German A2 level, Japanese introductory. Then I know exactly where you stand. The same thing for C, C++, Java, etc. If you wrote C++ and Java in the same tone, then I'm going to assume you know them equally. And if I find otherwise at the time of the interview, then I'm going to question everything you say, because it's a statement and question mark on your integrity. Okay. On the second part, exaggeration is a no-no, full stop. I'm not even prepared to answer the question how you should handle it. I'm saying don't. Why? The repercussions, which is a very important piece, and I'm glad that you are asking this question explicitly. even at the cost of not getting the interview call, I would definitely stop where I'm comfortable answering the questions. Because not only you will lose that job, immediately in 5 minutes, I'll be able to gauge very easily that you really don't mean business. And I'm going to communicate that to other hiring managers in different companies. We have a network at the top.
True.
I'm going to say, iska resume mat dekho. This is a completely botched up resume and we wouldn't recommend. You don't even know that your resume is not being looked at because of this reason. So don't even get into that. Just be reasonably honest. I'm not saying that you have to be absolutely brutally honest, but be sure where you can push your luck, but don't misrepresent. Definitely don't do that.
I think a lot of times when resumes are not shortlisted, I'll come to that topic also.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they post resumes on, say, online websites, Naukri or those kind of websites, their resumes are not selected, I think, mainly because of this reason as well.
Yeah.
A lot of them must be faking a lot of information on
Absolutely.
the resume.
Yes.
Apart from this, there was one interesting discussion that we had a few days ago as to how these resumes are shortlisted.
Yeah.
And how they are actually funneled or filtered, and then they reach the right the right company or the right recruiters.
Yeah.
If you could explain that.
Yeah. So let's say there is a company that has put up their requirements, what is called JD, job description. Then if I were to be applying, then I would be writing my resume, keeping in view the JD, and of course keeping in view my expertise. And that would be summary, objective, etc. I submit my resume by email, and the process that is being used by more than 85% of the companies worldwide is that this resume gets filtered through something called ATS, Application Tracking System. And to my utter dismay, I found out that many students don't even know about this term. And what this will do is, this is a filter. This is the basic filter. If your resume doesn't pass through this filter, it doesn't meet a human eye. There's no question of anybody reading your resume because it doesn't get printed. And the reality is that for one job position, there are 100 applications. And then you shoot your wonderful resume, you have great achievements, you are very confident, you shoot it to 50 companies. And not a single company comes back to you saying that we have scheduled your interview. And you start thinking, this is the beginning of Kali Yuga. How is it that people who have lower CGPA than mine are getting interview calls and I am not getting even a single call when I am one CGPA point above them? And then you start thinking all the bad things. But really what might have happened is your resume was not ATS compliant. And what is ATS? ATS basically is a filter that says in JD these are keywords 5 and the resume has only 2 of them. If it is 40% match, then it gets filtered out. If it is 3 or 4 or 5, then it gets to the next level. This is a very simple automatic process, application tracking system. So when you write a resume, my important suggestion is more than how it looks. For example, a latex resume or a PDF resume. I am arguing that you should think about a doc, Microsoft Word doc, even though it is not as impressive.
A simple document.
Simple document. And definitely write keywords, simple, easily interpretable keywords. Don't make it amazingly English rich. Make it simple. And the JD keywords need to be there in your resume. If the match is more than 80%, you will go to the next level.
Right.
So ATS, and how do you make sure that your resume is ATS compliant? So there are tools. They are AI tools. They are free.
Yes.
So for example, Novo Resume is one such filter that I will talk about. And then there are many. You can find out from ChatGPT and DeepSeek and all tools you will find out. But you write your resume to the best of your ability. You pass it through ATS, and in fact there are now tools which are AI enabled, which will tell you precisely where you have gone wrong. They will tell you make modification, and they will even suggest, like Grammarly, which is for English. So there are lots of tools. Use AI to make sure that you become ATS compliant. And then once you pass through that, then the company is going to look through the filtered resumes, and then they would call you for maybe aptitude test, then subsequently the GD, then maybe technical round, maybe technical round 2, and then there's HR or mixed, and then the selection happens. The other type of resume which we should not leave in our discussion is the visual or video resume.
I'll just come to that.
Yeah,
I'll
okay.
come to that in a minute.
So even that process is very similar.
Yes.
The process remains similar. The input would be either a document that you have attached to an email, or a printed resume, or a video resume.
Right.
Yeah.
See, why I'm spending so much of time on a simple printed resume is because even today, almost, I think in my experience, almost 90-95% of the candidates are still using that.
Correct.
One question I will ask you over here is, I was recently on Instagram where I saw one advertisement, about migrating to the US and jobs in the US.
Yeah.
And there's an AI powered tool which has been developed, to show us what kind of jobs are actually available over there.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people who want to migrate, they simply have a visa and then they land over there and then they do some odd jobs, trying to get a proper footing over there. Similarly in India, what kind of tools do you think are available apart from the typical Naukri and Indeed and those websites, which can be used by these students to probably submit their CVs in those kind of companies? Because at senior levels it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Jobs will be always there at the junior levels, which will be advertised on these websites. So what kind of tools are available for this?
So there are many websites, like Job Profile is one. Apart from the Monster Jobs, timesjobs.com, etc. And I'm saying that if you work on your LinkedIn profile very well, that is a source of hiring for many companies. And I can give you many examples where students who were completely unsuspecting have gotten calls for scholarships, internships and jobs.
Okay.
Just because they were current and scrupulous on social media. So LinkedIn would be a good source to look for an opportunity. And then Job Profile and Monster Jobs, etc., etc. In case of US, more preference is given for skills rather than academic performance. So just because you're from an institution that has legacy, it may open the door, but it doesn't seal the deal. What will seal the deal is what you can do for me today. So this pre-assigned credibility is much more in India, based on an institution rather than in the US, or I would argue in general for developed world. And I'm sure the audience is very, very keenly aware of what is happening currently in the US.
Correct.
And that is a separate topic of discussion,
Yes.
if at all.
Yes.
So things are going to be a little murky for quite some time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So when it comes to these kind of things, social media we just spoke about.
Yeah.
I explain to students, that you post very, very responsibly on social media.
Yeah.
Of course, that's also a very big topic.
It is.
To discuss on. But with respect to jobs, how important is your presence on social media? It could be on Facebook, could be on Insta. Apart from LinkedIn as a professional platform, also personal platforms like Instagram and Facebook.
Yeah.
How important is it to be there on that?
So two-pronged answer. One is that the social media presence will open up jobs for you, opportunities for you. And secondly, companies will validate your candidature and they will make sure that your presence on social media is sanitized before they actually offer a job to you. What will you do if you were to meet somebody tomorrow? I'm sure you will find that person on LinkedIn, Facebook. The companies will do the same.
Correct.
So how you have presented yourself, packaged yourself on social media does count. So social media is very critical. It is not an option. And so there has been a case where I have witnessed, and many other, I'll just give you one quick example. One person that we were hiring in IBM, this fellow was topper of XLRI, and this was in HR. So he was it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be given a job. And somebody from the selection committee, I was part of it, said, look at his Facebook account. And he has written some disparaging remarks about a section of Indian society. If we are going to take him in HR,
Difficult.
So he might be very good in academics, might be XLRI topper, but if these are his views and he is not holding back, and if he is representing himself like this on social media, which is open to public, then we would rather not. We would go for the second candidate, and he did not get the job. The irony of it all is he doesn't know why he did not get the job.
Yeah, because why will they explain?
Exactly. He must have thought that maybe there was a better candidate. Actually, there wasn't. So social media is not only to open up opportunities, but also to make sure that you get a job. So both things. And so social media, you must be there, you must be current, but you must be there scrupulously. If you do that, then you are going to actually benefit from social media.
Now coming to the topic of visual resumes.
Yeah.
Could you explain us what exactly is the term visual resume?
So visual resume is nothing but a 90-second, up to 90-second video that you have shot for yourself, or somebody else has done that for you. Essentially, if you want to distill it down to the crux of it, then it is, why should I hire you? Answer to that question. If you are able to describe why you in less than 90 seconds, that's video resume. That's essentially objective and summary in a visual format. So that would have many elements, like you will talk about yourself, you might get somebody else to speak about you. That could be part of your visual resume. For example, if your HOD is saying that he or she is my best student in the class for last 5 years, that is an endorsement.
Okay.
So visual resume does not necessarily mean it's only you. You could be demonstrating a machine that you built or a project that you have. It might just be a 5-second clip, or it might be an infographic where you said, I worked in an internship where the cost was this. When I joined, the cost has become much lower, efficiency has gone up. Some infographic like that can also be part of your visual resume. So video resume or visual resume is of that type. And all of this is assessed using AI and robotics in the companies. Not exactly this, but if you look at TCS as a company, TCS has ION as a platform, which they have been using for quite some time now. So there you can schedule your interview, you can schedule your aptitude test, etc., when you feel you're ready. All of these things are already happening. And one stark example, not very common, but stark example I want to give you is for Volvo as a company, which is car maker, as we know. They had taken interviews of 200, they selected 200 engineers, and they selected using a car taking the interview. No human intervention was done.
Okay.
The car itself took the interview of the candidates, and they actually offered jobs to 200 engineers. So this is not just a marketing gimmick. They said that they saved a lot of money. So this is also on the rise. So while we are focusing a lot on printed resume, we should be mindful that these things are also coming to India, and there is a proliferation of it.
I remember, long time ago, we had tried our hands at building video resumes, where there was a proper setup like this.
Yeah.
And people were dressed up in uniforms and everything.
Correct.
And they were only speaking about themselves. But yeah, the point at that point of time, we didn't realize it should be short.
This is more.
I think those videos were probably 2.5 minutes or 3 minutes. For today's generation, it is not difficult because they're anyways used to making reels.
Correct.
Which are 90 seconds to 1 minute.
Oh yeah. And there are tools, AI-based tools, which will help you build a video resume very, very nicely. So you should use that.
Could you give an example of one or two such tools?
So Microsoft has come up with a tool for video editing and video resume. So all video editing tools can be used.
Okay.
So Microsoft, you feed that, and the AI part of it will make it succinct.
Right.
Yeah.
Now coming towards the end of the entire discussion, we spoke about application, we spoke about the resume. One area where people generally go wrong is negotiation of the salary. Quickly, if you could just tell us how somebody should negotiate without sounding maybe too demanding or too rude or whatever it is. How should somebody negotiate?
So, frankly speaking, Aditya, I don't think I'm a very good negotiator myself. But I will still tell you some best practices of negotiation. And there, I would appeal to the students to think about a longer term picture and the overall compensation. Just don't go by a number that is fixed for your salary. That part should be avoided at all costs. If you keep the bigger picture in mind, for example, if you are joining a startup, naturally the compensation is going to be much lesser than an established company.
True.
But the chances are that in the long run, in 10 years, you are going to come out ahead, either because the company is successful or because you have learned to wear many hats, which you otherwise would not in a bigger company. And that would, even if it fails, you are going to be learning something that nobody else has learned, and definitely not formally in the college. And then you will become a hot commodity all over the world. So keep an eye out for these opportunities in the longer run, rather than being myopic and looking at, अरे यार 10,000 और अगर मिलता तो मैं ये company join करता. That is not the right attitude. Also, there are many companies who cannot go beyond certain level because there are certain structures put in place. There are norms. And so if you are in, say, band 1A, then there is a ceiling. They can't just bend the rules only for you. What they will do is give you maybe stock options. They'll give you some more pension plan. There are ways and means of handling this, and I am a beneficiary of that. For my IBM job in US, I already had hit a ceiling when I joined, and I said that I'm getting much better in the other company. They said, don't worry, we will have compensation plans, we'll give you some stock options, which they were not giving to the new joinees at that point in time. So look at the bigger picture is the base theme that I will go by. That will be the underlying physics of negotiation. And so don't go by a single number. And this would be very tempting for the age group that we are talking to.
Correct.
Because for them, buying the next Apple or iPhone is going to be their dream. And that would be falling short by 10, 20, 30,000 rupees. And then they would be very jittery about it.
Correct.
But think about being able to buy many more phones later on. So I think the patience would be the universal virtue which I would request the students to consider and throw it in the mix.
So I think upgrading to a new phone may not be that important, but upgrading your skills, upgrading yourself,
Correct.
ideally should be the goal. Towards the end, sir, if you could give us some closing advice for the students to sum up the entire discussion.
Okay, so I would then again start with or talk about what we started with, and that is continuous improvement. No matter what you are doing, whether it is a technology stream, whether it is a management stream, whether you have joined a company, whether you are in an internship that is going to turn into a PPO, or you are going to explore 5 years down the line, or you are thinking about entrepreneurship, I don't think continuous improvement and continuous learning is an option. So that would be the most important suggestion I will make. And the second would be, at any point in time, not just now, you must think about at least 2 areas where you are good. One, where you are the best, and second, where you are good. If you have 3 or 4 other options, third and fourth option, that's well and good, but minimum 2. Gone are the days when you were a fantastic programmer and you retired as a programmer. So the gig economy will demand that you continuously not only improve but also change. In fact, they are saying that, so 2 important statistics. One is Deloitte is saying that the half-life of knowledge has come down to 5 years. Now, and this was 3-year-old information. Now they are saying it is like almost like 2 years, which means in simple terms, whatever you learn completely anew today will become useless in 10 years. If that is the case, do you really have an option of not learning?
Absolutely not.
The second statistic is that the students who are in their 20s right now, as opposed to me, I'm 56, so my days are different. These students are going to have 3 different careers, not 3 different companies. They are going to have 3 different domains and careers. They may start with psychology and they may end up eventually as salespeople. They may start as engineers, but they may retire as psychologists, and so on. If this is the case, then again the underlying physics would be continuous learning. So these 2 would be my main thrust areas to make sure that you stay relevant in the job market, whether you are seeking one or creating one. And that is continuous learning and being interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary, not shying away from areas just because you think they are too siloed. Again, those borders are becoming very porous, and the fields are interbleeding.
Correct.
So be ready for that. And secondly, must have a great control over one topic at any point in time, and at least one more topic where you are 80%. And they need not be dependent on each other. A person who's a chef can be very good or reasonably good in accounting, good enough, and so on.
Interesting. So I think it was a very, there's a lot of knowledge that we, passed on to this entire discussion to the viewers. Jobs are available. There is not, I don't find that there's a dearth of jobs. But then again, the right kind of skills, the attitude, being open to those kind of jobs, being open to different verticals, without really having those boundaries or those walls in between, and continuous improvement.
Yes.
The attitude to learn constantly, not stopping the entire journey, because I think Tendulkar also he mentioned that every time he plays on the field, it's always a new experience. In fact, recently the match that happened between India and Pakistan, there was always this commercial that came in between where somebody's coming and clicking a selfie with the team and Mr. Kapil Dev. So वहाँ पे that fellow comes and says, मैं winning team के साथ एक photo खींचना चाहता हूँ, winning captain के साथ. So the current captain goes away, he says, पाजी के साथ खींचिए. So he says, पर आपने भी तो जीता था. He says, ये भूलना पड़ेगा. अगर हमें अगला वाला जीतना है तो ये वाला भूलना पड़ेगा. So that constant learning attitude is very important.
Correct.
I am sure you people have enjoyed this entire discussion. As always, this is going to be my practice to get guests for you to discuss on contemporary topics for your understanding, your importance. Please comment. Comment जरूर करिए कि on what topics would you